Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this.
At home to Seton Hall, and kind of a must-have game for the Johnnies. They're now 2-8 in their last 10, and the Hall of Famer Rick Pitino, listen, I mean, he said afterwards, this is the most unenjoyable experience of my entire lifetime. This is a guy who was, again, gone through a lot. I mean, for him to say that with everything he's gone through, Doug. Now, again, Rick is the king of making these
hyperbole?
Crazy statements. Yeah, the king.
Hyperbole.
I mean, there's hyperbole. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. What the hell's going on there? And like, is Rick Pitino? Because I had him preseason top 25 because he's Rick Pitino, and he brought in a lot of transfers. But he went to the well in the Ivy League too many times, number one.
No. Listen. Okay. Jordan Dingle was the leading scorer for Penn. They were happy to see him go. Okay.
Right.
They were happy to see him go. Chris Ludlam was the leading scorer at Harvard.
Solid. Yeah,
they were happy to see him go. The coaches weren't, but the other players were. Okay. So again, some of it is when you're trying to flip a program and you don't have a lot of time to make a decision, right? It's a small window of time and you're trying to decide on things and you're replacing 13 guys, and you haven't been in the college game because that's a big thing. Or if you've been in the college game,
you haven't been in the high major college game.
Right. I meant that you haven't been in the college game at the high major level. So one mistake, and look, some people can get away with it. Danny Sprinkle's got away with taking two of his players from Montana State and Utah State.
Sure.
Now his leading scorer, here's the difference. His leading scorer went to West Virginia, and I know there's other issues at West Virginia, but he's not a Big 12 caliber player. So one, if you leave your school and you take players that you value from your level, sometimes you don't understand, like, that's a higher level of basketball, and they're not playing that higher level for a reason. So that's a bunch of their guys. You mentioned Dingle, Ludlam, the lower level as well. So I think that's a portion of it. I think they have some personality stuff. And again, it's a damn good league. Everybody, like, if Sean Miller can't win consistently this year, it's hard for anybody because that guy is a great basketball coach. It's a hard league. So I think there's a multitude of factors. Do I think Rick eventually will figure it out? Yeah. What he's going to do, he's going to get rid of all these guys except for one or two, Brady Dunlap.
Isn't that what he did, though? Isn't that what he did?
Yeah.
It's the same thing
he
did.
He
cleaned up the roster and brought in all these guys, and then it didn't work. So who's to say that it's going to work?
Again, it's not. But
you're automatically assuming that because it's Rick Pitino, it's one of those we're like, hey, because it's Rick and because it's New York, we're like, this was going to work. Everybody just validated and stamped this and was like, there's no way Rick's going to figure it out. It's going to happen. And this team, just like Memphis, is going the other direction. And they're going fast. And the metrics love them. And I'm wondering, when I look at it, when you take all the shine away and you look at them, I'm thinking, who have they beaten and why does the metrics love them so much? And then now people are just discussing that they're kind of playing their way out of the tournament. I'm like, playing their way out of it? Like, are you kidding me? Like, even today to sit there and say that they're 14 and 11? Right. Was St. John and the Maui and I didn't miss it? Was that non-conference schedule something that I didn't see? Like, what are we talking about here?
No, they haven't been. I didn't buy into them during the short period of time when they were playing well. Remember, they beat they beat essentially the bottom of the league early.
Yes.
And it turns out, right? They beat Xavier, they beat Butler, they beat Nova, they beat Providence, right? That's the bottom of the league. But we looked at it like, man, that's awesome. Then they played the good teams in the league, like, hold on a second, and the loss to Creighton really started like, that's a 1-point loss. Could have gone either way on the road. But then it just kind of snowballed. And that's the issue when you don't have culture. Okay, that's the issue when you have players that, as Rick said, have never won before. Because then when you lose and the sky is falling, you don't handle adversity well, right?
Then we got to say the same thing. Then it falls on whose shoulder?
No question, Rick Pitino. The difference, Randolph, is he's got from Boston U to Providence to Kentucky to Louisville to even the New York Knicks, okay, it's proof that like it's worked before.
He can coach.
No.
He can coach.
Listen, he's one of the best ever. I'm not questioning that. But he's also one of the guys that if I had my money, I would have taken all my money and said NIL and money and the transition with Rick Pitino.
No question.
This is going to work instantly.
Wait. Let me jump in on this. Let me jump in on this real quick. I think part of the problem was, as Doug started this conversation with, they had to make quick decisions. Rick Pitino hasn't been in that world for a while. Steve Masiello had been in that world for years and then was at Manhattan for the longest time and then Iona. He hadn't been in that world. So you're trying to get information on some of these guys that, frankly, you don't know a lot about, and you've got to do it. It's a different world right now. So
I'll tell you,
you're rolling the dice.
I was around. I don't know if you guys were. I know, Jeff, you go to these games. Like, you'll see this. I was around 4 staffs just yesterday: Oklahoma, BYU, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. Okay, all of them have somebody or several somebodies. Okay, watching every other game, not just Synergy, watching every other game.
Right.
Because they're sitting there going, I like him. I like him. I don't like him. I like him. How much is that going to cost?
You got to be prepared.
And
you better be prepared.
Correct. I don't know
if you're not doing that, you should be fired because you're incompetent. Like if you're not doing that right now,
but
you can't be employed.
What we're saying is, okay, it looks like their game plan. And it was interesting. You get 13 guys, okay? So you have to kind of figure out like juggling numbers and, how do we put things together? And it's pretty obvious they made some decisions that I didn't necessarily agree with, okay, with some of the guys in terms of reputation-wise. But you think, okay, Rick can figure it out. Sometimes he can't, And so they'll start over. It's the same thing with Musselman, right? Like Musselman has figured out this puzzle the last 2 years, right? Then this year, it's got a bad mix, and they stink. And they stink. So you're not wrong.
He had more transfers, though. I thought Musselman did it more in the portal. He had high school talent mixed in with some of his guys before. And I thought this year he went all portal, like Memphis, like St. John, and it's hard. I always say this.
No,
it's hard.
The best way to build.
You can't. I always use this analogy. I think it's difficult to furnish your house from the thrift store. If you shopping at the thrift store, you can find you some gems in there, but it's hard as hell to furnish your whole damn house from the thrift store. You got to mix.
You need a mix. You got to mix. All right, let's
move on.
We got to get to Kentucky.
Hold on. They also had AJ Storr. He was there.
Right. He ran him out. He ran him out.
But what happened is like they just cleaned house. Everything is bad, right? They just went and tried to start over. And so we should do a whole pod on this at some point because it's fascinating. You have to have you got to flip it, but you also have to build guys, like a culture of guys that you're going to keep, because retention, I think, is the biggest key. Yes, UConn is added from the portal, but they've retained some of their guys. Purdue, like what's their secret? They add one guy a year, but they retain guys. I know Wisconsin's struggling now. Okay, but they were so much better. They retain guys, and then they add in AJ Storr. It's kind of worked out. And it doesn't work out everywhere. I think Texas has done a good job of retaining their talent, and they added some pieces. It hasn't been as successful. But I do think that retention becomes the new word of choice. Is all these guys, and it's going to be hard if you're a player, right? Do I put my name in the portal when or is this the most I'm going to be offered? Do I actually want to move? So it's going to be a really interesting offseason.
Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.